would have been.
Where did you dig up that old fossil?
Going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
That's no move.
We're all fine here now, thank you. How are you?
Welcome to the Star Wars Nerds Podcast. I'm Dan Vadabonker.
And I'm Kenton Larson.
And we, of course, are going to talk about the Vanity Fair piece that broke this week, and, of course, and lots of other media as well that I noticed. But first, Kenton, before we begin, I have to ask you, what do you think of the new Kids in the Hall season?
Oh, I enjoyed it very much. I of course, finished it already. I love it. Kevin McDonald lives here in Winnipeg. You see him sometimes, and now
FanQuest.
He was a guest at FanQuest, and I will never be able to look at him the same way again after that first episode.
Well, honestly, they were all excellent, but I thought he in particular was so good in so many different parts of that.
Yeah.
And my favorite part of it, I tweeted, my favorite part was the song because it felt like they recreated that intro perfectly, but with all the older versions of everybody. I don't think they did that, but I don't know. Like, they certainly had older versions of some of the older versions of Shadowy Men on the Shadowy, like the regular, everybody was back in the intro, right?
Well, there's a member of Shadowy Men who passed away who is not in the intro, I have not figured out if they then included the older one. I'm the older part of the thing, so I'm gonna have to look into that. And I believe that's Dallas Good on the other guitar, who has since passed away. He played with the Sadies as well, and I believe that's him in the opening credits. It's so fast. Those opening credits are so fast.
Yeah, and I don't skip them. I didn't skip it ever. I watched the whole thing and watched it through. And just ended brilliantly. I actually paced it out. I watched two in a row and said, wait, I have to stop. I have to pace this out. This is going to go by too quick. So then I watched it one per day for the next 6 days or whatever, and so good. Yeah. Can't wait. And I'm sure they're going to come back and do another season because everyone seems to love it.
Oh, and you should also know that today on Amazon Prime is a 2-part Kids in the Hall documentary called Punks. And I think it's a new documentary, if I'm not mistaken, and it played a film festival last year, and I don't remember which one.
Cool.
So anyway, that's out today. I've already added it to my watch list.
All right. But we are here, of course, to talk about Star Wars, and there was a major piece in Vanity Fair, and I immediately, I confused it and thought Entertainment Weekly, because it's always been where this stuff has been in the past, but this is a Vanity Fair piece about
Vanity Fair always does it too, though. The Annie Leibovitz photos. Oh yeah.
That's right. You're right. Yep.
This goes way back, but they haven't done it for TV properties before.
Well, that's the thing. This has been given the same treatment as the sequel movies did. Like the last time we saw this was for like The Rise of Skywalker, probably, I guess, was the last big movie that came out, right?
Yeah. Right.
So. Yeah, it says Star Wars: The Rebellion will be televised inside the master plan for a fleet of new shows. And then it runs down all the shows coming up on Disney Plus, right? Starting next week with Obi-Wan.
There's some great photos in there, though I wouldn't say any spoilery photos, but
no, of course
just some beautiful photos. I thought that these actors had been photoshopped together, and in some cases maybe they have been. But then I saw they have behind-the-scenes videos up on Vanity Fair and on YouTube, and they do appear to all have been there at the same time. It
looks like they took these photos in what they call the volume, right? Which is a giant surround screen they made for. And this article indicates there's 3 of them in Los Angeles, and they're building more of them. There's one in Vancouver, I think. They're building one in Vancouver, which is very cool. And this is just this new way of filmmaking that requires no travel. You don't have to go anywhere. They don't have to go to Tunisia to film scenes on Tatooine anymore, right? They can just make it in their studio.
And it looks great. It looks
perfect.
Amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't understand how it works so well. I don't know why we still see people in cars with fake green screen scenery on TV.
Well, this has to be super expensive. I can't imagine this is cheap. And then it also talks, while we're on this topic, about like they had James Cameron down to take a look at it. And James Cameron is known to be very exacting, and he's been working on these freaking Avatar movies for a decade or more, and it doesn't look like it's great. I'm not really excited about those.
It looks like the last Avatar.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing, and we're not. By the way, 3D has come up. 3D has come and gone. I don't think 3D is a thing anymore. If it is, nobody really cares about it. So I don't know. Anyway,
well, I mean, maybe we're missing something here, and when it actually comes out, it'll be It'll be amazing.
Nate,
But
it's gonna be underwater, Kenton. Underwater is different than in trees.
We have had this discussion before about film properties that overstate their fandom, and I would put Avatar in that list. I'd just say, okay, yeah, like people raced out to see it, the first one, and in the same way they did Titanic. And so great. Yeah, there were people were excited to see the technology and see the story unfold. I don't believe that translated into action figures and people just chomping at the bit for this stuff. Though James Cameron as a brand, I think people are always interested to see what he's going to come up with. So I think that's the primary interest here.
It has its place high because of James Cameron, out of respect for James Cameron and of what he's brought, like Terminator and Titanic and Aliens and all the things he's done. Like he has so much credibility in Hollywood that we'll accept Avatar. And I mean, I don't think it's gonna these are gonna come and go, and they'll probably get good box office. Certainly, the first one will. Everyone's gonna kind of want to see this again. But unless it has something really interesting, I don't think it's gonna translate into the next 4 or whatever they're gonna do.
Right.
Anyway, let's get back to Star Wars. Forget Avatar. We see here they have a little video here about the photo shoot with Annie Leibovitz. So you see them kind of doing all that stuff. And imagine her, like she's taken. How long has she been doing this for?
Oh, forever.
Right? Going back to the original movies, I'm sure.
I mean, taking pictures forever.
Right, but how long for Star Wars?
Oh, yeah, forever.
Forever.
At least the prequels, I'd say.
Yeah, that's right. At least the prequels, if not the
there's
not the later
famous,
movies. Certainly, maybe not for the first one. Anyway,
there's the famous one with all of them sitting out in the Tatooine desert with Episode 1 with Liam Neeson, and Jar Jar Binks is sitting on a director's chair there too, and a bunch of others, and that one's especially famous because that was one of our first looks at new Star Wars.
Yeah.
When the prequels came out. So at least the prequels, this has been going on.
Luke thinks that if he mentions Jar Jar Binks, I'm going to get annoyed. He brought it up the other day in random conversation. What do you think of Jar Jar Binks? You think Jar Jar Binks should be in that? And
I think Jar Jar Binks could be in Kenobi.
Probably. Yeah, I wouldn't see why not.
I think there's a possibility that if he's not in it, his name comes up. I think there's going to be some kind of Jar Jar.
Well, we're going to have 2 of those 3, right? Remember all the time, though, that Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Jar Jar spent together, wandering through Naboo and through the forest and underwater. They have to have some kind of reunion, I think.
You mean, not Anakin. What's his name? Qui-Gon.
Qui-Gon, sorry, that's right.
Yeah.
That's gonna happen.
There's always a bigger fish. There might be a bigger fish in Obi-Wan. I wonder if the bigger fish will appear.
Maybe. All right. So, and that's the first show that it's talked about in this article. They start with Obi-Wan, which is again next week. My daughter's birthday. I told Shannon, she's like, awesome.
Well, they sort of do a little encapsulation, and they say Obi-Wan is up first, but then they go into Andor.
You're right. Sorry, you're right.
Yeah. So Andor's there, and we get some pretty good tidbits, including that Andor is a refugee story with desperate people fleeing the Empire at the full force of its power. It's the journey of a migrant, he says, that feeling of having to move behind the story very profoundly and very strong. It shapes you as a person. It defines you in many ways and what you're willing to do. And it also says we're going to follow Andor's birth world. We're going to follow him into adulthood rather. And he says by journey's end, Andor's path will be to block the Empire's path. So that's kind of cool. And we got a little Mon Mothma photo in there as well. So we learn a little bit more about Andor, and I just find I'm still interested as to why he got a spinoff series so quickly, and the decision making. I just think it's interesting. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to see it. But it's funny that he's one of the first characters who gets one of these shows.
Well, I think that diversity is important to people there, and they are trying to. I think they recognize that they didn't necessarily handle that well in the okay. Well, while we're on that, I just want to talk about one thing we skipped over is they talk about the hiatus in the beginning of this, in the lead up to the different shows. They talk about the hiatus, and that's part of what Solo, Rogue One were kind of seen as not failures, but not great. Didn't blow everybody away, and then the Rise of Skywalker. And it's interesting. This article notes that the Rise of the hiatus, as they call it, was called before Rise of Skywalker was even released. So it's like they already knew something was rotten in Denmark before the movie even came out, and then of course people hated it, and so that's when Kathy Kennedy said, "Okay, let's stop, let's refocus and regroup and see what we can do," and then that's where this all came from, right?
Yeah, and so I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in here that's sort of beyond the scope of what we have time to talk about today, but about the debates behind the child and the Mandalorian, about the volume and its dust-free surrounding, about lots of that stuff. And once again, before we started this podcast, we're sort of saying this is a 14-page article without like cut and paste into Word, which is how I read it, just because the ads drove me insane. But really, there's probably 1 page of exciting Star Wars news in this 14-page article.
Yes, and we'll get to that in a second. I just want to say, though, during the hiatus, I think one of the things I recognized was that he didn't handle the diversity thing very well, and they tried to kind of, I don't know, maybe... I mean, I know that, anyway, I don't want to get into it too much, but they recognize that. So I think that when they recognize Andor as a character, he is Hispanic. Like, Andor is not Hispanic, but the actor Diego Luna is. And I think that, I remember hearing him in an interview saying that a lot of people have responded to him very positively by seeing a Hispanic actor, like, who's not trying to hide his accent, and he is like himself. He is like a Hispanic character in the Star Wars universe, and so people really like that. So I think that's part of why they did kind of single him out for a series, because to see where that can go. And I think they're gonna, in a similar way to which they built the Sand People culture based on kind of indigenous culture here in North America and that kind of stuff, they'll probably do something similar with Andor's culture. Like, he's from somewhere, he's got an accent, he's from somewhere. Yeah. Right? We're going to find out all about that when we see what his childhood was like.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think there's also room for surprises in that, because we don't really know very much about his character. Right. So I think that it'll be easy to surprise and delight people with that one, because now we know a little bit of what to expect, but we don't know a ton. Well, I think we know more about Obi-Wan, what to expect with Obi-Wan based on the timeline, than we know about Andor.
Yeah, there's a nice little story here about he was in the car when he found out about the show or something.
He's in a taxi and he's afraid. He's talking in code.
Oh yeah. Because he can't say anything out loud about the show, right? There's this huge veil of secrecy over everything they do. It's probably worse than probably more strict than the government in some places, I would imagine, right? Like top secret level scripts and that kind of stuff. They get really, really serious about it. Yes. Okay. So yeah, but that's the one that's furthest away, right? That's not coming for a while.
Right. That's right. But before that, and then the next thing that this article covers is Obi-Wan.
Okay.
And so it says, some of the questions they had: how much should they showcase legacy characters and how much should they keep them in reserve? Is introducing Darth Vader into a story about Obi-Wan's exile, does it detract from their fateful meeting on the Death Star in 1977 Star Wars, when Vader strikes down his old friend? Or could a previously unknown encounter actually enhance that moment? And then they talked to Deborah Chow. And I thought this was a very interesting concept. She says, for me, across the prequels, through the original trilogy, there's a love story dynamic with these two, with Obi-Wan and Darth Vader and Anakin, that goes through the whole thing. What intrigued her was the idea that despite what Vader has become, Kenobi might still care deeply about him. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And that's an aspect of Obi-Wan Kenobi that we've never explored. Like in the original films, you got a brief conversation with them. You always kind of talk about how that important that reference. He says, "Last time you were I was but the student, you were the or whatever that thing is." What's the line?
When I left you, I was but a student. Now I'm a master.
Yes, that's the
only
line.
A master of evil, Darth.
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, right, that means something, and now we're gonna find out what that means. And that's the one part of this that we haven't seen explored as far as the relationship between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan. We know the relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan, and we think this show is going to explore that a lot. I think we're going to see lots of flashbacks with Anakin and Obi-Wan. They're going to youngify everybody's faces. One other thing, I'm going to just quickly, I saw this on Star Wars TikTok, and there was someone asked a question or some reference to this. Someone asked about recasting legacy characters. Is that what you're talking about? Recasting legacy characters? Is that what that's in this? Yeah. So recasting legacy characters.
That's not in this. That was in Variety.
Oh, sorry, Variety.
Yeah.
But that was the thing where they said, no, we're not going to do that, right? We're not going to take somebody else and recast Han Solo anymore like they did for Solo, which kind of means that they're not going to do a Solo sequel, right? They're going to shut all that down.
I think that while that story is based on something they talked about, I think first of all, I have to point out that was a very badly written story. There's copy mistakes throughout the story. There's a line that's it's in Variety, and there's a line that says it's a new low, except the typo is it's a new love. They misspelled low to
and
love.
It's still there? Oh my God.
And the quotes are improperly formatted. It was poorly put together. So I kind of look at this and think, what else is poorly put together here? Like the research.
Right.
But because, of course, Obi-Wan was a recast. And I also think, hey, we're not going to recast. Well, you are going to create CGI digital versions of people, though. So what is a recast? I think there needs to be more exploration into this idea, because I don't think whoever wrote this thing or put it together, I don't think they either got it from someone or they got one line from Kathy Kennedy and they did not press her for more information. I can't remember. I read the article earlier this week, I should say. So I don't remember, but it just, after reading it, it was not persuasive.
Yeah, and I think it's more like they're just going to shut down whatever. Anybody was asking about that, they're just going to shut it down. They're not going to say yes. And they have the right to change their mind whenever they want. So he could say that now. Next week, they might be calling or might be casting somebody as the new Han Solo. Because I don't think, and by the way, the other thing this guy on TikTok pointed out is that Solo movie also had the recasting of Lando, which everybody loved. Everybody loved of Donald Glover's Lando Calrissian, and they wanted to see more of that. And this would not happen if what the statement holds true, but I don't think it will. I think that's just kind of saying stuff to placate people and to shut people up, or to spur more speculation like we're doing right now. I don't know.
Once again, I'm not convinced of the merit behind that story, just based on the poor way it was put together in the first place.
Right? Yeah, fair. So forget that.
I responded to it and I said, this article needs a copy edit, and then somebody responded and said, this article needs to be deleted. People commenting on articles online rarely read the articles.
Right.
So that's the other thing. It's pretty easy to make something like this take on a life of its own. So we'll see. Yeah.
I'm noticing a lot in the, again, while we're on the topic of Star Wars news, a lot of these clickbait articles are saying things like, Deborah Chow thinks, like, it's like this, the director of this thinks it misunderstands some aspect of the prequels. Like, they don't think they're really, whatever. Like, they just, like, this person doesn't know what they're talking about is basically what it's saying. And that's just designed to get people who think that and they agree with that statement to click on it. But that's a ridiculous statement. This is a new piece of work. This is not beholden to anything that's come before it. Sure, it's got to build on that, but it can do whatever it wants, right? And if there's an aspect, as long as it rings true, as long as it feels genuine and something that we think Obi-Wan would do, it'll do. And nobody knows that better than Ewan McGregor. Come on, that guy played Ewan McGregor. That guy played Obi-Wan Kenobi way longer than Alec Guinness did on screen. He has way more screen time as Obi-Wan Kenobi. So I think Ewan McGregor's in a perfect position to play him. He knows it sounds like he's having fun. It seems like they're both having fun. A lot of that behind the scenes stuff, show them joking around. I saw this. I didn't watch the whole thing, but it was one of these videos on, I guess it was on YouTube under the Vanity Fair, YouTube channel. But it was like, these iconic Star Wars actors answer Star Wars questions. And so it's got Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen and Moses Ingram and everybody from the cast of Obi-Wan. It's like one of those promotional interviews you see. And what they say about it. And then the first question is, describe your character to us. I'm like, well, it's not Star Wars questions. I thought they were going to ask him Star Wars trivia. Like, that's what answer Star Wars questions means to me, right? I know they're going to ask him about their character. That's what they're going to talk about, their actors, but give me something else. Anyway, I didn't watch the whole thing. I'll go back and watch it. Maybe they do some trivia at some point. But that's what I really care about.
I've watched some of those videos, and there's lots of them up there because Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor have gone on the promotional tour together. And so there's so many videos of the two of them clowning around that it starts to get confusing after a while. Or you sort of get the sense of where we're going with this after you've seen a few of them. But it's good. Yeah, it's great to see them together again and out promoting Star Wars. It's a lot of fun.
I'm waiting to get the Wired autocomplete interview or whatever that one is, where they rip off the pieces of paper and then what does Ewan McGregor eat for breakfast or something like that. It says that. What the things that people Google about them. So it's going to get rough for Hayden Christensen, I think. But is Hayden Christensen still alive? I would think that's probably one of the questions people used to Google.
I don't think they did.
No? Okay.
Well, what were they confusing him with Anakin?
Maybe that's right. Maybe, or maybe the first actor that played him. Okay.
Is he badly burned? Did he get?
Does he hate sand?
It's coarse and it gets into things.
Then we move on to Ahsoka is the next show they talk about, right? They talk about Rosario Dawson and how she had done her spots on The Mandalorian. And then I guess things started to build from there.
Well, and she talks about, she posted Sky Guy and everybody lost their minds because Sky Guy is Anakin. And then Lucasfilm suggested that she take it down. So it seems as though there will be some form of Hayden Christensen in the Ahsoka show. And Dave Filoni says Ahsoka is a continuous story. It's definitely driving toward a goal in my mind, as opposed to being singular adventures. And I think that goal is, of course, Ezra. I think that goal is Grand Admiral Thrawn. I think, and then
why, of course, though? Why do you say, of course?
Because that's where we left off. Because I believe, and even if Anakin is in the series, it'll likely be flashbacks. I think it'll be Mandalorian era. And is
this because it's Filoni's series? This is his story to tell, and this is always what he had in mind when it came to these characters. Because he did Rebels too. Well,
they've teased it. They teased it in the Mandalorian too.
How?
When in the first Ahsoka episode of the Mandalorian, they said she was holding down the guy with the lightsaber and he said, I report only to Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Oh.
He said, and you kind of went, oh, all right. So that's where we're going to go. We're going to see.
Oh, okay. Now I remember. Yes, you're right.
Yeah. So we're going to see him. And I think it makes sense. It makes sense that Dave Filoni would want to show us the live action Ezra, etc.
Okay.
And some version of that Rebels gang.
And you're going to be very disappointed when it's not Jason Schwartzman.
It better be Jason Schwartzman.
He's old. He's in his 40s by now. He's too old.
De-age him. I don't care.
That's right. They have the technology. They can totally do that.
Do a CGI character of him.
How much do you think it cost to de-age Mark Hamill?
Oh, it was a fortune.
Billions of dollars a shot. They're not going to spend that kind of money on Jason Schwartzman. I'm sorry. So By the way, I just want to.
I'm not going to get a Rushmore prequel, is what you're saying?
Yes. Well, they would. Well, they might do that for Bill Murray. They would do it for Bill Murray, but not Jason Schwartzman. Anyway, they. What was I going to say about that? I had something else. Oh, I can't remember now.
So,
the Mark Hamill and the Kids in the Hall.
Oh yeah, he's in it.
Awesome. I love it. So
we should have said that at the beginning. That's the tie-in to our podcast. Duh. Yeah, he's in it. And although I will say the one part of the Kids in the Hall show that I don't think works so well is the tributes from other actors.
Yeah.
That's the part they could have just taken out of there. And
I don't need to know that Pete, whatever I know who submits the place names, because Pete Davidson's thing was from Gimli, Manitoba. I'm like, come on. Like my least favorite guy out of all those people, and you got to make him from Manitoba?
That was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
I like the Mark Hamill. I love seeing Mark Hamill. He had a great time. He was like so funny. And like, that's just, and I think they just said, just record 30 seconds of something. I think that's all they said.
Yeah. Mark Hamill likes the stuff that we like. It's always fun to see him too.
Yeah.
So I was excited to see him. Everyone else, fine. Whatever.
Okay. Back to the article. Where are we now? Ahsoka. What else do we know about Ahsoka?
Well, we don't know much more about Ahsoka. The next one I have a hot take on, though. Are you ready for the Acolyte? Which they say it reportedly it stars Amanda Stenberg, who I am not familiar with, and it takes 100 years before the Phantom Menace. And in the article it says, my question when watching the Phantom Menace was always like, well, how did things get to this point? How did we get to a point where a Sith Lord can infiltrate the Senate and none of the Jedi pick up on it? Like, what went wrong? What are the scenarios that led us to this moment? And The Acolyte is a mystery thriller set in a prosperous and seemingly peaceful era when the galaxy is still sleek and glistening. And those quotes are from the director of Russian Doll, whose name is Leslie Headland. And I watched the new season of Russian Doll. Not as good as the first season, but it's definitely worth a watch. So what do you think of The Acolyte? I think I know what this is about. I think I figured it out, but go ahead.
Is it Lord of the Rings for Star Wars? Is that what this is?
I don't think so.
Okay. What do you think it is? Go ahead.
I think so. I would not have guessed this before, but because she said, how did we get to where we are in The Phantom Menace? What happened before then? I think we are going to see Emperor Palpatine as a young Jedi apprentice, a young Sith apprentice, and we are going to see him kill Darth Plagueis.
100 years beforehand? He's more than 100 years old?
Oh, yeah. Of course he is. And
he is. You're right. You're right.
He's going to kill Darth
absolutely
Plagueis.
Right. He is the Acolyte. He's absolutely the Acolyte.
Yeah. He is the Acolyte, and his story, and it will be the tragedy of Darth Plagueis that he describes to Anakin in the opera scene. Don't you think?
Even 100 years from the center of Star Wars, we can't escape the characters. We can't. Can't have something completely separated. Has to
not yet. We can't. I don't think.
Maybe this is the first step. This is like, let's see how people accept this, and then this goes well. We'll do more in the, what they call the whatever that prequel era. Not prequel. Sorry, what do they call it again?
High Republic.
Yes, High Republic. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, more of that. That's what they're working on the books. They're churning out books by the. I don't know, and I think they're doing pretty well. I see a lot of people talking about those books on TikTok. The High Republic books. I've never read any of them yet, so I'm not going to comment. I should actually take one out of the library now. Did I think about it? Well, I was looking for something new to read. I finished my book last night, so I'm looking for something.
What the hell?
Yeah, maybe I will. All right.
Okay, the next one on the agenda is a code-named show called Grammar Rodeo. named after the episode of The Simpsons,
right?
Where Bart and his schoolmates steal a car, and
one of my favorite all-time episodes. I love it when they steal a car and they're like, that's the one that's got the reference to Winnipeg. That's it. Back to Winnipeg. That's the episode.
That's Grammar Rodeo.
You bet.
Oh, so we're gonna get Star Wars set in Winnipeg.
That's right. That's what that means.
Oh, maybe Pablo is informing that with the.
Could be. I mean, I could see him coming up with that reference for sure. Pablo's a big Simpsons fan.
That is interesting. I did not know that was the same episode. So all we kind of know about that one, we couldn't put a real name on this thing. We just really, the Vanity Fair couldn't squeeze the actual name of this thing out of them. Maybe they don't have one yet.
Maybe, or maybe they don't like it. Maybe they're waiting to see if they come up with something better.
Yeah, maybe, but and it won't be called Grammar Rodeo. I thought when I saw that at first, I thought it was going to be like Schoolhouse Rock, except Star Wars. Mm-hmm. But I don't think so.
Maybe the basic plot follows that same episode of The Simpsons, except in Star Wars. So they have to get a fake driver's license and then rent a car. It's a pretty ridiculous episode when you think about it. Then they're on the road. They go. What's the name of the? They go to a concert that Nelson just loves. It's some crooner, Andy Williams. They go to an Andy Williams concert, and Nelson's just like, oh, yeah, gee, and he's all in love with it. And then they get to the Globe or whatever. They're going to this thing where there's the capital, the wig capital of the world, and then they have to buy some wigs. And then I think Bart has to travel across the world as a courier to earn enough money to bring them back. It's a very good episode of The Simpsons. I'm going to watch it tonight, actually.
In the article, they say inside Lucasfilm, the show is being described as a galactic version of a classic Amblin coming-of-age adventure film of the 80s.
Ooh, I hate when I don't like that. I don't like when they're labeling it as that. Only Spielberg's capable of that. Does that mean Spielberg's going to do it?
No.
No?
Anything's possible, I guess. I don't think so, though.
Now that he's scratched his musical itch, maybe he wants to do Star Wars.
This sounds to me more like a J.J. Abrams type.
Well, J.J. Abrams would describe his own work as Amblin style because he thinks he's the next Spielberg, but I don't know, whatever. That's fine. Kennedy, you know what? Kennedy did produce for Amblin, so she can say that. Right. For sure.
Absolutely. And then, so that's it for the TV shows. So once again, little tidbits about each one, which is great. And then we have a little bit about upcoming films. And they said Taika Waititi's film is likely the next one that we will see. That's pretty exciting.
Interesting.
And then so it says likely it'll arrive first, with Rogue Squadron coming after that with the same information. And then Vanity Fair asks if Kevin Feige, is that how you say his name?
Feige, yep.
I always mispronounce it. Kevin Feige will produce Star Wars. Will he produce a Star Wars film? And Kathleen Kennedy says, I'd love to see what movie he might come up with. But no, right now there's nothing specifically. And they even addressed the Rian Johnson's trilogy, which has become kind of a running joke. And Kennedy says it's been put on the back burner. And he's been really busy because he's shooting all of his Knives Out movies for Netflix.
How many is he doing?
I guess it's going to be a trilogy, is it not?
Oh, okay.
Multiple movies, it says here, but
okay.
I thought it was going to be 3, maybe not. And then she says she doesn't like to use the word trilogies anymore because Star Wars is much more about persistent storytelling.
Right.
So that's pretty good. Like that means we are going to see Star Wars at regular intervals now.
And they're going to kind of abandon the old trilogy model, which I think is happening in general for movies. Right. And this shift from major studio films to TV, as in Disney Plus, it's going to continue happening. We're going to get speaking of Lord of the Rings, we're going to get a huge Lord of the Rings series from Amazon at some point. I don't know when that's coming out, this year. That's going to be like high end. They're putting a ton of money into that. And the other thing I thought about on this topic recently is that some movies should be series. The Batman. Did you watch The Batman yet, Kenton?
Unfortunately, I watched it.
Okay, you didn't like it?
I didn't. No, I know you liked it, and I know lots of people loved it.
Well,
I found it a bit of a slog.
Yeah, it is. It is a slog. You're absolutely right.
There's elements I liked, of course. I mean, you can't not like certain things in that film, but there's lots that I did not like. And overall, I thought I really didn't have to spend the time watching that film.
It's 3 hours long. It's fucking long. Pardon my French.
Yeah.
But that's the point. That could have been a series. Like, think about this as in a series. They break it up to smaller episodes. They maybe do 5 or 6 episodes, 45-minute to an hour episodes or something. They have more time to tell the story. They have more time. There was some great, like the film looked great. The acting was good. I liked seeing a lot of the reinterpretations. I went into it cold, so I didn't know about any of the casting. I didn't know that what's his name was Gordon. I didn't know that that criminal guy. Well, I'm forgetting his name. Anyway, Jesus from the Big Lebowski.
Dano?
What's that? Paul Dano. No, that was ridiculous. That guy was ridiculous. That was
I hated that guy.
That was horrible. Let's please stop doing that. Anyway, that's the problem with it, is that it's too much. So that kind of stuff, that could be, but there's so much like this blockbuster machine keeps that moving. That Batman machine is just cranking those movies out. They're doing another one. They're going to do another one with all those people.
You do realize, though, this is the first one that did not give us Batman's mother's pearls, right?
But they still talk about it. They still talk about the parents' death throughout the whole fucking movie. Like, the whole plot is still centered around their death. And I'm sitting there, Batman is an orphan. Boo-hoo. So are millions of children around the world. This is not a problem. And by the way, he's rich. So he's a rich orphan. Nobody cares about that. That is not relatable. Make it about something else. Don't make it about Batman. That's what they need to do. End of rant. All right, we got to wrap things up.
We're thinking, like, is Batman the only person on Earth who's lost someone?
Right. To a criminals, to some random stranger, and the city is just such a mess. This Gotham City,
he should just move to the country.
Come on, get out of there, man.
If everything's
let it burn.
Bad,
like Alfred said in the other one, let it burn.
Right, exactly. That was sort of my feeling when it was all over. What are we protecting here exactly? The place is a cesspool.
No, I think that of all this, the words "we have a roadmap" is very reassuring to a lot of fans from Kathleen Kennedy, because it did not appear as though they had a roadmap before, right? They were just kind of they were traveling together, exploring new countryside together without a map. They didn't know where they were going, and they just kind of, they ended up in some bad places. So this is nice. They have a roadmap. They know where they're going.
Favreau and Filoni righted the ship, I think, with The Mandalorian. That's where it all really started to feel good. Like, we knew where we were going, that we were telling some exciting new stories, that we were seeing post Return of the Jedi in a way that honored the original trilogy, but that still had lots of interesting things to show us and to say. So that's really good. We should also point out that next week is a Star Wars Celebration. So there's going to be a million announcements probably and interesting things, trailers of some kind maybe out of that. We are going to get our first 2 episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi 1 week from today. Right. Unbelievable. We will have watched them by this time next week.
And we'll have a product. We're going to do one more Saul episode, right? We're going to talk about the final couple Saul episodes.
The mid-season finale.
And then we'll get into the weekly kind of discussion of the Obi-Wan episodes as it goes along.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to the Better Call Saul finale or mid-season finale as well.
Yeah. And so thank you so much, AMC, for taking the break right in time for Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's just perfect.
Yeah. It's interesting that they did it for a month. It's kind of an odd way that they've done it, but I have a theory about that, but I guess I won't. I guess I'll save it.
Yeah.
But, well, I should probably say it now because I don't want it to look like I'm a Johnny come lately.
Oh, okay. So go ahead.
So I'll just say, I believe if we're going to see everyone's 2 favorite cameos on that we've been expecting all along on Better Call Saul, the place to drum up excitement and get people ready for the second part of this might very well be a mid-season finale. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go on the record saying I expect that this will be at some point we will see them in this episode.
Okay. We'll see.
The two I'm talking about. I'm not going to say it just in case people haven't seen it.
People don't know? Okay.
No, just in case.
Okay, there we go.
I'm going on the record nonetheless.
There we go. So we'll have that for you next week. We'll see if you're right. That's going to do it for this episode of the Star Wars Nerds. I'm Dan Vadabonker.
I'm Kenton Larson. Don't let the Force hit you on the ass.
I'm taking an awful risk, Vader.
I don't know. I can imagine quite a bit.
Going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.